Welcome to Every Dull Moment. I'm Greg Blythe, and today our episode is going to be the differences between a meat cleaver and a Chinese cleaver. So today I've got one of my favorite knives that I love. You might have seen me recently do a Chinese cleaver episode. This is the Kawasaki Super Blue custom handle by Pi Cutlery. It has the Tashimi and Kuriichi finish, carbon steel. So it's a Japanese blacksmith made a Chinese knife. And this Chinese cleaver, you can see, is just a true slicing knife. It's very thin, as we will show you. So this knife in the Chinese culture is used for everything. This is your petty knife. This is your fish slicing knife. This is your chef knife. This is your literally everything. And in the Chinese culture, they have two knives. They have one that's a big, heavy, meat, bone-crushing cleaver, and we have that one actually in the Western culture as well. And then they have the one that's their all-purpose, kind of do everything with it. So I think a lot of times when people just see this in the general public, they think meat cleaver, and it is not the case because we have one for you here today. This heavy bad boy is a wrecking ball. Okay, this meat cleaver, you can see it is thick, it is dense, and it weighs significantly more. It has a convex edge. It is sharpened differently, and there's a lot of different things about this knife that has a much different purpose. So let me go ahead and pick up the other knife and give you a side-by-side. This knife would not be used for petite things like slicing a shallot. This would not be used for filleting a fish, which you've seen me do on this particular knife. This knife could be used to break down a chicken. It's definitely used for breaking bone. Now, today in the modern world, we have heavy machinery. We have table saws. We have bandsaw. We have jigsaws. We have a lot of things. Butchers use a lot of different saws today. But before that, this butcher knife, this meat cleaver, was how you would get extra bone off of the end, breaking down ribs and so on. So the thickness of the two side by side is significant. We're about to weigh it so you can see the difference. I can tell you that the thinner knife is something I would never use to cut through a bone. It would chip the knife. The knife would be useless beyond that day. It would have holes in it. And when you go to sharpen this knife, you really do want to keep that meat, that thickness behind the edge. That volume, that density, that weight is going to give you inertia. When you're using a downward forward with the motion, it's going to drive itself through the mass that it's meant to cut through. And so you're really not going to see the chipping with this knife. It is a hard knife, but it's a little bit of a softer steel to give it some forgiveness. And when you sharpen it, if you actually have to keep it rounded. You do not want an acute, like very flat blade, or what would cause chipping. You can try to get this knife. You could obviously sharpen this knife as sharp as this if you wanted to. I think it does lead to cracking of the edge. I would not necessarily try to get a razor's edge on this knife. The thickness is going to do you a lot. So we can see that they're massively different. You have no clue what it weighs like in my hand. So we're going to go ahead and pull up a food scale real quick and show you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on, and we're going to see what type of, so we've got it on kilograms. So let's just go ahead and put this knife on here and see what the weight is. So we have, if I can see this correctly, 238 kilograms.
0.238 kilograms.
Okay, 0.238 kilograms. All right, so we're going to go ahead and alter the units real quick. And so we have 8.4 ounces. All right, so let's remember that 8.4 ounces. That's the measurement that I'm used to as a Westerner. All right, so let's make sure it's back to 0. Let's go ahead and go back to kilograms. So 0.7 is significantly higher than 0.2. So if you remember earlier,
It was 0.238.
okay, so this is more than 3 times heavier. So let's go over here. So we have pounds. Okay. So we have over a pound and a half. Significant. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to bring this knife to you. I do not have a cow here to break down. I do not have a rack of lamb. I think you get the gist of it. If we had, like, say, a big cowboy chop and we wanted to make a traditional bone and ribeye, this would be the thing to go through that bone and separate it from the rest of the ribeye. Butchers originally needed this tool. This is definitely the jack of all trades when it comes to just breaking through carcasses. I'm sorry if that sounded abrupt to you, but these are the 2 knives that you would see in the Chinese community. This knife is definitely found. This is a Western handled, Western meat cleaver as well. All cultures have a knife like this. I'm glad we were able to share it to you in case you were unfamiliar with the little nuances of its shape. Hopefully this was not a dull moment. We appreciate your support as always. Thank you. God bless, and we'll see you next week.